I don't share this very often, but the first person who I ever worked with was, this is super random, was Chris Eubank, Senior, the boxer.
Welcome to Aha Moments podcast with me, Kobi Omenaka.
And we've had people land talks and 5x their return before day one in the community.
My guest this week is Alex Merry. Alex is the founder of Mic Drop, which is the community for thought leaders and keynote speakers. One thing I should say, actually, right now, Alex has just opened up Mic Drop, which only opens up a few times a year. But if you're listening to this right now, as I drop this, you can go to Alex's profile and sign up for Mic Drop, which you should do if you want to be the best thought leader and the best keynote speaker you can be.
You don't need to be the hero of your story to really connect with your audience. Actually, more often than not, it's the times where you've had to be the student and learn some really hard lessons that connection happens.
There are 3 takeaways in particular from this episode. Number 1, you don't have to be the hero of your story.
You start to care a little bit less about how you come across when you've been exposed to that such public rejection.
Number 2, you have to be prepared to be rejected in order to proceed in life and your career in general.
Thought leadership, content creation, public speaking is actually a very lonely game. It's also very, very secretive.
And number 3, really, and going back to Mic Drop as a community, it's the power of the community. How thought leadership can be a lonely game, but something like Mic Drop can help elevate what you're doing because you're working with other people, because you have that accountability, because you have that community spirit. You have people who push you up and people who you push up as well. Alex, thank you so much for joining me on Aha Moments podcast. How are you doing today?
Kobi, such a pleasure. I've just gone for a walk to prepare myself for the podcast. It is like gale force winds out there at the moment. Yeah, sorry about this. LinkedIn says I'm in London, but the truth is I'm actually down in Dorset in Swanage. I'm by the sea these days.
Is that just easier for LinkedIn to say London because that's where people know? Swanage is a bit abstract. I mean, I say Manchester. For example,
yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, it saves those conversations.
Keeps it very, very simple.
This is it. Well, yeah, so you got the gale force. We've had the rain now for the first time in a few weeks, which is Manchester, so it's back to normal. But it does feel a bit strange. So gale force winds, is that Swanage regular? Is that a Swanage thing?
We get to a point in sort of October, November time where we have a full-on storm. You know, the kind of storms that have a name. Storm whatever it is. Storm Dave, whatever it is.
Do they always originate with Swanage basis?
Yeah, they all start here, and then maybe they go further out. But this is where the core focal point feels like it is.
And that's where you chose to live for the rest of your life, probably. Maybe not for the rest of your life.
Certainly for the foreseeable. We're very, very happy down here, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I'm the same. I was in London, and we moved up to the northwest for a bit more space, a bit more change of scenery. And it probably takes longer to get to London from Manchester, where I live, compared to yourself. But it's not an arduous journey. I enjoy the trip when I do it, when I do make it.
Yeah, just a couple of hours on the train, headphones in, locked in, get some good work done. Nothing wrong with that.
So there's a few people who are part of your community, Mic Drop. We're going to dig into Mic Drop shortly. And I think with just through LinkedIn and just being in the same kind of ecosystem, there's a few crossovers in people we know, like Chris Donnelly, for example. So yeah, I want to dig into that before we go to the aha moment questions and get people to know you a bit more vicariously through me getting to know you a bit more. So how did you get to being like the de facto person to go to if you want to be a speaker? What's your pathway to that? Because it wasn't really, when I was at school, being a public speaker wasn't really a career option. So how did that come about?
I absolutely fell into this, Kobi. I had no idea what I wanted to do at university. I ended up falling into this job in a charity fundraising agency. And we would go knocking on people's doors, those people, trying to get people to donate to charity on a monthly basis. That is actually the very seed of where everything started for me. You have to learn how to build trust extremely quickly in that kind of scenario. And what we ended up becoming really good at was, if we look at it from a product perspective, we were able to talk about the charities in a way that made people subscribe for years, as opposed to maybe sign up for a month and then quit. We spent quite a lot of time with each person, build a good relationship up with them and all of that stuff. And that's kind of where it started. My transition into public speaking was, this internship, it was the students who were doing the fundraising. And that's, I was a student when I was doing the fundraising myself. And when I joined the team, we needed to get students each summer. So we'd spend 3 months on the road giving talks at universities, trying to convince students that going door to door, fundraising for charity was a really good use of their time. Nobody knew who we were. This was before you could kind of promote things through social media and all of this. So we turn up on campus knowing that we were going to run a meeting, sort of an information meeting about the internship at lunchtime. And our job in the morning was to get as many people coming along to that as possible. So we'd go into lecture halls and we'd do like a 1 to 2 minute Dragon's Den pitch where we'd hand out tickets. Right. They weren't tickets, they were flyers. But we'd say, like, if you'd like to come along later, it's going to be really busy, so you're going to need a ticket. We were there panicking, look, maybe no one will turn up. Put your hand up if you'd like a flyer. And sometimes you'd have 400 people looking down at you. Oh, wow. No one puts their hand up, and you end up having to do this walk of shame out of the room in front of all those people. And that sort of, it's a pretty brutal sort of training grounds, but you start to care a little bit less about how you come across when you've been exposed to that such public rejection. So that was really where everything started. That
must have let into your life in so many different ways, as to like caring less about people, what people think about you initially, and realizing that the worst that you previously thought could happen, when it does happen, it's just like, oh well, on to the next one. Well, I mean, what was it like? Because there was a bunch of you doing it, so you weren't just like teleported into a place where you didn't know anyone or anything, and there wasn't any kind of support structure, but that must have helped, at least with like camaraderie, other people being rejected in the same way, and other people being going through the same kind of thing, and other people realizing as well that, hey, it wasn't that bad, let's go on to the next one.
Absolutely. You'd sort of come out, maybe you go do that 9 a.m. lecture, and you'd come out of it and you'd meet somebody else who's just done their 9 a.m. lecture, and we're like, well, how did it go? And they were like, oh, it was awful. We called it a donut. You come out with a donut where you weren't able to hand out any tickets. You just kind of, you'd have a bit of fun with it, try not to take it too seriously, and actually, more often than not, that next lecture that you might go into, maybe you get a sea of hands. It's just the most rewarding feeling in the world. And you realize that a lot of stuff is out of your control. All you can do is put yourself in the mix. So I think that rejection element, starting on the door-to-door, actually knocking on doors, was really important. But then in the more public speaking facing side of things, I think that was a useful kind of resilience builder as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, your resilience levels must be like up to 11 at the moment. Do you feel that at all, or you? I mean, how phased do you feel before you step onto a big stage, for example, at the moment, compared to maybe where you were before you did the charity work?
It really depends on the level of exposure that I've had in the previous weeks and months. I realized I remember I think it was around the COVID-y time, I suddenly realized, well, I've actually not spoken. I'm a public speaking coach. I haven't actually spoken in public for 2 years. I should probably do something about that. And that first session I did back, all of the sort of shakes, like the uncontrollable shakes, all of those things came back. And it wasn't until I'd done 2 or 3 that I was like, okay, I'm starting to get more back into my zone now. I'm like, it feels more comfortable. So I think, you need that bit of exposure to fight or flight for it to all come into motion. And good to practice what so many people I work with have to go through themselves.
Well, I guess it's the building the reps, isn't it? And I talk about used to run loads, swim loads, all the triathlon sports loads, and then COVID times that stopped, parent times that stopped, and now again starting running again. It's like a baptism of fire again to get back to where I was, or just being happy where just running, happy swimming, happy cycling again. It's just getting those reps in again. It's just doing it again and hopefully continuing again.
And it's part of the journey, The mindset I tend to have for my business now is I very much approach it as the long game, and so I'm committing to this for the next 10 years. It's not about whether I'm committing to this for the next 2 or 3 years. It's the next 10 years. And when you think of things like that, if you have a particularly bad day, well, it's just such a small blip on that timeline and graph that it's having that sort of framing for it, I've certainly found helpful for the ups and downs of running a business.
No, I completely agree with you there. And with Chris Donnelly, who we'll talk into the second, and also trying to build out this big word which is new, this personal brand. For me, well, so I'm more visibly on LinkedIn, posting at least once a day, and as we come up to, I'll be getting up to day 200 in a row in a couple of days' time. I'm not just thinking about now, I'm thinking for like 5, 10, 15 years down the line. for a variety of reasons. But I think that's where you have to go to. It's not just, I'll put a post out and today it went crap, or no one saw it or no one really cared. But when I do have a post that hits bigger and I get some leads through it and people follow me as a result of it, that wave of euphoria is great. But I'm thinking about where will it be in 10 years time as the position. What will I be able to do to leverage that in 10 years time, not just now? And I think that's a really important piece to think about. And it sounds like, yeah, like you say, you're on that kind of same wavelength. I'm learning guitar. I've not been able to practice for the past few months, but past 3 years I had really good consistency. And I'm just thinking, well, I'm going to get back to it, and I'm going to get back to do my grades and my exams and stuff, because I really want to get to that level of being like, yeah, I'm a guitarist. I'm a really good guitarist now. That's a slight waffle. Back to you, Alex.
It all makes complete sense. I wrote an article in my newsletter last year where I mapped out how many followers I was predicted to have at my current growth trajectory. And I was getting on close to 1 million followers. Now I have no idea what I do with all of them at all. But what I do know is that it would probably I'd be happier that I did have them than didn't. So, that in itself I think is useful. But I think one of the things people struggle with, I'm seeing so much of it at the moment. Everyone's complaining about the algorithms on the platform. They're changing. What used to, I'd put a post out that what used to get guaranteed get thousands of impressions. Sometimes I only even get hundreds of impressions. And it can be incredibly frustrating. And I think the strategy that's really helped me to combat that is I tend to write about things that I haven't got clear in my head yet. So I absolutely see what I put out on the platform as a clarity exercise for me that ultimately is going to improve and make me a little bit better at what I do. Writing has been such a powerful lever for me to actually feel credible, to be working with some of the people I end up working with. You end up working with people, and I'm sure you've experienced the same, where it's like, I might be a bit out of my depth here. But it's this...
And Potter comes in.
Yeah, of course. But I think it's this... testing yourself around your subjects, looking at how you communicate your subject, working out what your opinions are around your subject, I think is a really important part of building your confidence.
It is. And I think just getting that out there sometimes, and then revisiting the day after, the second after you post it, or the year after you post it, and seeing how you've evolved from that moment is really powerful. And it helps to then drive forward what you will do, what your next step will be going forward. And that's one thing I said to a lot of people who are worried about posting, worried about doing whatever. It's just like, take that first step, and it's probably nowhere near as bad as you think it's going to be. It's probably going to be better than you think it's going to be. Ultimately, you're going to learn something from doing that.
Absolutely. And in the foundations of what I do with everybody, it's around getting clear on what it is that you want to say and looking at how you talk about your message in a way that your audience can resonate with. Because actually, when you start out in any kind of personal branding, thought leadership, we've got a very clear idea. Maybe we do have an idea of what we want to be talking about, but actually it's not until you're constantly testing different ways of communicating your message with your audience. You're like, that's an unlock there. And then it's like, right, I'm going to keep that bit. I
need to remember that. I was thinking when you're talking about standing in front of 400 people, my mind went to stand-up comedians. And the amount of stand-ups I've heard about the first gigs failing, or they've had a random gig that hit hard and the next one they failed at. But that perseverance is every single successful stand-up has had that. And that makes me think that, Michael McIntyre, your Stuart Lee's, maybe not Eddie Murphy. I think he was just born ready, Eddie Murphy. But most stand-up comedians you've ever heard of have failed hard and suffered, but then they've got up again. And this is what you guys this is the experience you had with the charity. This is what people will have as a public speaker. This is what people have in life. And I think that's a really important thing to learn.
There was an amazing quote, and I wish I could remember who said it, which is going to annoy me greatly that I can't quote them properly. But they said embarrassment is the perceived cost of entry.
Yeah.
Or embarrassment is the cost of entry. And I think I tweeted to being like, it's the perceived cost of entry, because actually very, very rarely does it ever turn out as bad as you think it's going to when you put yourself out there for that first time. But you have to be willing to look bad in order for you to grow and to get out there and to flourish.
So what does stop people unnecessarily, maybe unnecessarily in your opinion, from speaking publicly, even though they feel they have got something to tell, even though they feel they have got some kind of story?
Well, there's an absolute vulnerability to putting yourself out there. I'm not necessarily talking about sharing stories of personal hardship. That is one way of being vulnerable, but actually being vulnerable extends way beyond that. Being vulnerable is about taking a risk publicly and putting yourself out there, knowing that what you say could be judged in some way, shape, or form. And so I think one of the mistakes people often make when they start speaking on podcasts or they start giving keynote talks or whatever it is, it's this, we have this deep desire to be respected and to come across credibly, but it's often sharing the things that haven't gone well in the past that enable that to happen. You don't need to be the hero of your story to really connect with your audience. Actually, more often than not, it's the times where you've had to be the student and learn some really hard lessons that connection happens with your audience and so forth. And in order to get yourself to the place where you're ready to do that, you have to confront your ego a little bit and realize that you don't have to be quite as perfect as perhaps we think, versus looking at everybody else and how they're doing it and all of that stuff.
I think that's super true. When people maybe not necessarily build in public, but when they do share where things have gone wrong or share that behind the sheen, behind the gloss, there are cracks. That's what's made me be more endeared to those people in the first place and made me stick with them in the first place. So like with Chris Donnelly, who we'll probably about in a second, he told me for the first time that I'd heard him talking about it yesterday that, oh yeah, I've launched lots of businesses, some of them failed, and I don't talk about them anymore. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that. That's actually like something you should tell people because I think the perception is that you just like made these businesses and they're doing like really well. And there's people on LinkedIn who the people I like most, who I follow most on LinkedIn are the people is like Amelia Sordell, for example. I really like her because she's saying that, I was posting on LinkedIn for like 2 years and like zero happened. And then it started to kind of snowball. I was like, that's really good to hear, because a lot of people just say, well, I just did this thing once and I got 1 million followers and now I'm, I've retired and I live in Bali. And I'm like, is that really what happened? Because I don't think it is. But when you show those chinks in the armor, you show the reps, you show the experience you've had to go through, that is really important for people to know that you will fall down, but just get yourself up again, dust yourself off and keep walking.
Completely that. We often talk about the spotlight effect, where there is this, have you come across it before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's this idea that, it's like when you wake up in the morning, you've got a presentation to do, and all you can think about is what they're thinking about your presentation. They haven't given your presentation a second's thought until you step on that stage. They don't care. We are so consumed with our own lives to be worrying about what's happening with us. But it doesn't feel like that personally when we're kind of stepping out to be a bit more public.
I think it's I did include it in the carousel I put recently, the spotlight effect, and I was researching all these psychological like triggers, and you're the hero of your own story, but no one else's, and that's the key thing. And then again, another person who I really liked and follow for his philosophy is a guy called Ali Abdaal, and he talks about podcast. He talks about making content for YouTube, and he's got like I don't know if it's a mantra, but one thing that really resonated with me was there's two things about when you start posting on YouTube. First of all, no one cares. And second of all, no one cares. So the first no one cares is your friends, family, whoever's stopping you, whoever you're afraid of, like them coming back at you for posting on YouTube or whatever, shouldn't stop you. That fear of them like writing a message to say, hey, what are you posting on YouTube for? That shouldn't stop you, because they don't care. They don't care. And the second thing is, when you do post, people won't care. No one's going to come like knocking down your door with that first post. It'll take you time and effort to refine your message, as you're talking about, work out what your audience wants, work out how you want to engage with your audience before people start to get traction. And when he said that, when I heard him say that, I was like, that is actually really powerful as a non-blocker for me to just start doing things.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about his podcast, actually, he has a section in his podcast, or one of the sort of frameworks for his podcast is around bringing someone in. It's like a live coaching session that happens there and then. And I just thought I really liked that, because he's already very public. He's got a really big following, but that willingness to be curious, to learn, I thought was in such a public way. I thought it was a really clever way of going about it, and giving those guests the opportunity to showcase their expertise in their sort of perfect sort of scenario. I just thought it was a clever way of, a clever tweak to what we often get on podcast formats too.
So how did you get into public speaking in the first place, as you get paid for that? Because I'm sure that's a lot of what people ask you about. And also, then building a community about it, whether you go and support people, like you said, with Ali Abdaal style yourself, and raising the next generations of public speakers and public subject matter experts and thought leaders.
I absolutely fell into this. I don't love public speaking. I still get nervous beforehand. If I can give someone else the spotlight instead of doing it myself, I would much rather do that. I was having an email with someone. There's a festival that's coming up and they were asking me to speak. And I was like, well, actually, you could bring this person in instead. I'm very, very happy taking the back seat. But it's what I've realized over the years, is such a critical piece. If you deliver the right message to the right people at the right time, unbelievable things can happen. And when I ran TEDx Clapham, that was really what I learned. And so that first group of speakers that we had speak at TEDx Clapham, I would just help them tweak the odd little bit of their talks here and there. I didn't really have any right to do that, but I did. I just thought, well, actually, I think it would be better if you did this. And it was from all of that communication training that I was doing from the charity fundraising perspective. It just gave me a way of thinking about how you can get people to resonate with a particular topic or a subject, get people to buy an idea. And those speakers, or some of those speakers, thought that I must do it as a job. And so they started referring people to me. And so I spent the next years or so working with people on helping them prepare for high stakes presentations. And so it was very, very organic, happened all the way through, really from word of mouth. But one of the things I started to realize as I went through is that the people I was working with, they weren't treating public speaking just like a performance. That bit that we see on the stage is just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath that is a huge amount of strategy. And so I wanted to create a community that was really focusing on that strategy. So looking at how we communicate our message in a way that resonates. What is the right strategic message for the right audience at the right time? Looking at how we position ourselves so that we can grow an audience that can allow that message to amplify. And then looking at, how we can monetize it through getting paid to speak and becoming a sought after speaker and being known for your subject as much as perhaps the story that you might have. So that's really what Mic Drop's all about. It's a place to nail your thought leadership strategy, all aspects of it, whether you're a very, very experienced speaker who travels around the world getting paid some pretty good money to give talks, or whether you're at the start of that journey trying to piece together what it is that you want your message to be, and how do we allow that to thrive and flourish from there.
What you're talking about reminds me of Alex Hormozy, when you were talking about when you set up TEDx Clapham and you're just naturally coaching people to engage with their audience better. In this story, if it was Hormozy, I'll apologize if it's not. He's talking about just working out in the gym and someone seeing him as a regular person who seemed to know his shit. And they said, hold on, can you just help me out and give me some guidance and tips? And he said, yeah, we'll just go to the coffee shop round the corner. And he sat them down, went through a bit of a training plan, gave them a nutrition plan. And that person just pulled out their checkbook, wrote the check, gave it to him and said, thank you very much, and walked out the door. And he was suddenly like, what? Ask for this? But hold on, can I make money from doing this? This is interesting. And that to me sounded like what you went through as if it was an ordeal. But that's the kind of your experience you had, where you were just giving people advice and then they're suddenly referring people to you. And then suddenly, you're getting paid to do this, or this is part of your income stream. And what was that like, that kind of first
It was funny because
referral and check?
It started off as a hobby.
Yeah.
And I think, I just enjoyed the whole process of it, the audience psychology, all of that stuff was all just really interesting to me. I don't share this very often, but the first person who I ever worked with this is super random, was Chris Eubank, Senior, the boxer.
Wow.
I was introduced to him by one of the speakers at TEDx Clapham, and we book in a call. I say we book in a call. I was based in London at the time, so we met in person. It was kind of before you'd ever do anything like this. And he said, meet me at the Dorchester. I was like, better dress up for this one then. So I go to Mayfair, walk into the Dorchester, and he's there waiting for me. And he takes me through the sort of the main lobby area, and everyone is wanting to shake his hand and stuff as you go through. Then he takes me down into this basement that was super quiet, like basement bar that was super quiet. And then we just started talking about how he was communicating his message and all of this stuff. It was just the most bizarre thing. And one of the things that was really cool was I was still running the charity fundraising stuff at the time. And we were having this big charity fundraising meeting. And I managed to convince him to come and speak there, and the faces in the audience when we showed a little promo clip, and they were all confused, like, why are you talking about what's Chris Eubank got to do with charity fundraising? And we bring him in to talk about high performance and stuff. It was very, very, very cool. But actually having to work with someone like that, who is, world best at what they do, that starts to put things into perspective. The first thing he did say to me that wasn't necessarily great for my confidence was, "You look way too young to be doing this." And I was like, "I feel too young to be doing this and inexperienced to be doing this, but I've got to pretend that I know what I'm talking about." I didn't feel like I knew what I was talking about at all. But then actually turning it into a business, it was a leap of faith. The real story behind what happened, that transition into making this professional, was we shut the charity fundraising business down because we dragged it through a hedge backwards, and we couldn't financially make it work. And I was like, I know I want to work with founders and thought leaders, so I need to work out how I can get into a room with all these people. And I messaged Google Campus, who I don't know whether you ever went down to Google Campus.
I went now and again. I loved it.
Amazing hub. And I said, look, I'd love to run a free event for you for all your community, and we'll call it How to Land a TEDx Talk.
Yeah.
And they agreed. And I had 120 people sign up to come along. Maybe 60, 70 of them turned up. And I had nothing to sell. I wasn't planning to become a public speaking coach. I had no none of that stuff existed, but I just thought this could help these people, because I've seen where people go wrong when they apply to land talks like this, and I can make sure that they don't do that. And that was really where this was born. And actually some of the people who are in Mic Drop now were in that very, very first room all that time ago, which is kind of cool. How did
you start Mic Drop officially? What made you take that first step and say, actually, let's build proper community around this? Because the community is one of the big, I've got a few C words: community, content, collaboration, not collaboration, compounding, like just consistency as well. That I found really important. But community is like at the heart of this.
So the first thing I did was I just wondered whether there was something in the idea. So I have a newsletter called Founder to Thought Leader. It comes out every Monday, and I share a strategy, a public speaking strategy. Sometimes it's a tip, for a performance tip on stage, but often it's around how to land a talk or something like that. And at the end of that newsletter, I just put, I'm launching a public speaking community in Q4 this year. Click here if you'd be interested in being part of it. And we got to a point where I did that for 6 months. We got to a point where we had 100 people on the wait list, and then we were like, okay, let's press play on this. And the very first version of what that looks like was, it only lasted 10 weeks. So it was a little bit more like a program, but it wasn't like a course. It was totally different from the courses that I used to run. And we'd meet once a week and we'd cover something. I had no idea what was going to happen. But we managed to, of those 100 people, we got maybe 50 of them applying, and maybe 25 of them paid 100 quid to be part of that first 10 weeks. And that was where it was born. At the end of that 10 weeks, I said, would you continue paying for a year? And I had a minimum number of 10. If 10 didn't commit to paying, then I'd sack the idea off. And it was only on the last day that we got past that 10 threshold. It was like very, very last minute, everyone joined. I think we had 17 people who were like our true founding members. And then over that time, Mic Drop's been running nearly 3 years now. We've been building, and we're now a community of 150.
Amazing. Is that how you connected with? Because I've done a lot like the cohorts businesses, which are now starting to gain more prominence, and like Chris Donnelly, for example, I'm on his Creative Accelerator cohort, which you helped him along with in the early stages. Is that how that kind of came to fruition? Was he one of those early people?
He wasn't actually. So Chris and I are connected through some other people. One of the people who kept my business alive, you may have come across, is Dan Murray Serta.
I've heard the name mentioned a few times. Yeah.
He's quite prominent on LinkedIn, and I used to run a Thought Leadership Accelerator. It was a 3-month program where I'd help people create a TED-style talk, and we'd look at helping them land a big stage speaking gig as well. And Dan was on one of my very first cohorts of that.
Right.
And he's got the most unbelievable network, Chris being one of them. And ever since being on that program, Dan has been a massive champion of mine, and a number of times to stop my business from going under, and having to knock on the parents' door. So Chris and I are in a community together, and that was how I initially came across the Creator Accelerator.
And it's great. And that's the reason I joined, that is for the community there. And I feel that community is important, and, it ties back into Mic Drop. So what's it feel like actually running your own community? Is that, I feel some people, I don't get a sense from you it's narcissistic in any way, shape or form. I think it's generally like collaborative from everything I've heard from you, and almost like a fatherly, brotherly, friendly like figurehead in the system, in the ecosystem.
I think some of the most profound that happen in there are when people who are on paper extremely successful, it looks like everything's going well and they're smashing it. They will drop a post in the community and then they'll talk about what's actually happening for them right now. And just watching the responses come in from other people, thought leadership, content creation, public speaking is actually a very lonely game. It's also very, very secretive. Yeah. So people don't like to share what strategies are working for them because it might prevent them an opportunity. It might mean an opportunity goes to somebody else somewhere else. So having somewhere that people can go to share in the massive successes that happen and the hard things that happen is really quite powerful. But it's been, we've had to take it slowly. We're very much not a sort of a growth at all costs mindset. Every single person who joins has to have a call with me, and we've got to make sure that A, that we can help them, and B, they're going to fit into the culture of what Mic Drop's all about, which is ideas first. It's about the ideas, and it's about creating change through the talks and so forth that we give.
So before we get to the aha moments questions, I'd love to know what makes a great kind of Mic Drop candidate. If someone's listening to this now and saying, actually, I want to go down this road, I want to take my first steps down, expanding my thought leadership, and part of that journey, or a lot of that journey, I want to be public speaking. What do you look for? What kind of advice do you give at the start?
I love it when I get on a call with somebody and they say, I want to create this change. I'm fed up of this status quo and I want to see this world come into life. And everything that I'm doing publicly is about making that happen. I think one of the things that that members find immediately when they join and they meet the people who are already members is they see how purpose is at the heart of everything that's being done. It's incredibly low ego, and really it's about serving a bigger purpose. And we talked a little bit earlier on in the podcast about what takes people to a point where they might put themselves out in public and be more public. Well, it tends to be when they realize that the change that they want to see has become so important to them, they can't do anything but be public about it.
That's amazing. I liked also what you said before about you personally, like not wanting to be in that spotlight, and you're happy for other people to take that spotlight.
Irony is not lost on me. Off you go. Yeah, great.
A lot of the things now, I've got so many ideas for podcasts, but I'm like, I don't want to be, it shouldn't be my voice on there. It should be, I want to find people, make a show around them and say, like, here you go. This is for you. This is perfect for you. I want to help make it happen.
Daniel Priestley, who I'm a big fan of, he was speaking on Diary of a CEO. And there's a clip in there that has become very, very central to everything that we do. Because I talk less about being a public speaker and more about being a thought leader. And I want people to really step into that thought leadership mindset. And if we try and pin down what a thought leader is, it's people who put their topic and their subjects before themselves. And he had this quote, and it's not look at me, it's look at this.
Nice.
And I think that is the commonality with everybody in the community. And if we look at what makes a really good talk, it's not necessarily the stories about ourselves. It's the spotlight that we are shining on certain issues and problems that need to be changed that create that feeling of inspiration and often can be the very start of building a movement too.
Perfect. So this podcast is called Aha Moments Podcast, and I'll ask you 3 questions. The first of which being, can you think of an aha moment in a company or a company you've worked in, or a service that you've provided personally?
I think our job when we bring people into Mic Drop is to give them an aha moment as quickly as they possibly can. And the goal that we've sort of set ourselves, if we give ourselves a North Star for our onboarding, it's can we give our members a year's worth of value in their very first month? They feel like they've made their money back and more in their first month. So what we're trying to do is we bring people on in cohorts. So people who aren't start. It's not like you're the new kid in class and there are 150 people waiting for you. You come in all together. So the next time we bring people in will be in October. But when people join Mic Drop, they get instant access to all of the content and courses so they can get to work straight away.
Yeah.
Should they want to. And we've had people land talks and 5x their return before day one in the community. So I think that's a really nice sort of start.
Yeah.
On the first day, we have a welcome party so they can meet some new people and don't feel like they're in this alone. And that the whole purpose of that is to be like, oh, sweet, I know a few people now, I feel in it. And then in that first month, we want to help them design their strategy and build that speaker system so that they've got something they can use for the rest of their life, whether they're part of Mic Drop or not. And so that's what we're working towards from an aha moment there.
And what's the kind of feedback when people get that?
I think it's a mixture of relief or pleasantly surprised. It's like, oh, I get it now, or it's oh, I hadn't realised it was going to be as good as this. I had no idea. But I think
I love relief. That's a genuine like, oh, good, that's good, right? Let's do this.
I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
You know, like it can feel like a big leap to take an investment, and when you know you've made the right decision, I think there's a lot of relief that comes through with that. What I'm probably most excited about is we're looking at how we can take that experience to the next level. So we're building something behind the scenes called Mic Drop Memory, so that when people join on their first day, we're able to give them an archive of their thought leadership that they can use for everything that they do moving forward. It's going to help them with the strategy. You know, we use a lot of AI inside to help people with refining their strategy and so forth. But I think this is the thing that's going to help really take it to the next level and help them get results even quicker.
No, I love it. I've never heard the term relief when it comes to aha moments, but it is a visceral and honest reaction. I think it's true. That's like, oh, you saved me in some way, shape, or form. I'm gonna think on that. I'm going to think on that for a while. So the second question is, can you think of an aha moment in a product or service that you buy?
Well,
what was that aha moment? What, and do you still use the product as well? And I keep forgetting to ask that. Do you still keep on using it?
I've been panicking about this question for about 4 weeks. So let me tell. So the most recent aha moment I had was I subscribed to Perplexity, the AI tool, and we're using it to help build Mic Drop Memory. So I put in our members. I said, tell me everything you can about this particular member. And what it has managed to find on these people has blown my mind. And I think that it is going to help us coach them and guide them far more effectively than we've been able to do before. So that's kind of one thing. And then the other tool that I think is just mind-blowingly good that I've been using for the last 7 or 8 months. I don't know whether you've come across it. It's Senya.
No. What's this?
SEIO.
So like in a Nordic way.
100%. Yeah. 100% check this thing out. It's a place to store your testimonials. I know that sounds like, do I need that? Yes, you do. Everybody needs this thing. It is amazing. Anytime we get a win inside the community, we'll drop the Senya link to them so they can share what that win is. That can then go automatically onto our website, and it will turn it into beautiful social posts too. So if you need to find a certain like it's just a place where everything is. I used to just have stuff everywhere. I'm not sponsored by them, but I 100% should be. I just think it's for people who are building something that is service based. I think it is an unbelievable tool to create proof points.
I love it because when I've started doing websites and redoing platforms I own and getting those testimonials, people have been happy to do so, but then there are 20, 30 in the grave somewhere. I have no idea where they are. So I wish I had at the time. I'm going to definitely check it out. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And the final aha moment or life hack, I like to maybe rephrase that one as is, can you think of a personal aha moment that you recommend everyone should, well, not recommend, but has made a difference in your life personally?
The best life hack I have is no meetings in the morning.
Right. Is that your deep work time?
That has changed everything for me. I don't have the cognitive energy to do deep work in the afternoon. So if I don't do it in the morning, it's not going to get done. It's the same with exercising in the morning. All of that stuff has to happen in the morning because it just will not get done in the afternoon. And a few years ago, I decided I was going to write a book. And the person I worked with, her name's Layla Green, my book writing coach, amazing book writing coach. She said, well, when are you going to find time to make this happen so we can write a book in 6 months? And I thought that was a really interesting question. You've got to make time for these things. And so I decided to get rid of morning meetings, and that was my time to write.
Yeah.
And I've decided to keep it on now. I often get asked, how much time do I spend building my LinkedIn? Well, all morning, every morning is, a huge amount of time is the reality.
Yeah.
But it's my place for clarity of thought and to get better at what I do, so I can help the people I work with in a more profound way.
And I think that's obviously for you, it's the morning. For other people, it might be the afternoon, but it's like work out what time is the most valuable, impactful for them, and protect it. Yeah, I'm a morning person as well. But when you said that, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should just block out. Maybe I should change my Calendly so meetings are just the afternoon, unless it's like a super urgent, important one. Then fine. But I like that. I do. I think I'm genuinely going to take it on board.
You can thank me later, Kobi. Do 2 weeks of that, and your enjoyment will peak,
skyrocket. Because I am also like, if I do exercise, it has to be in the morning, because or lunchtime at the very, very latest. After that, it's just not going to happen. And all the excuses in the world, or life happens and it just won't happen. But yeah, I'm typically like 7 o'clock in the morning, if not earlier, do something then. And then the day is like, I'm already won that day if I've managed to get some exercise done by that time. Alex, sorry, tell us what your book is. I was looking, it is on your newsletter. Oh no, it's on your signature.
It might be slightly hidden.
Yeah, it's on your email signature. Make it count. Make it count. There you go.
The book's called Make It Count. The truth is that book's probably not relevant for most of my audience now. I wrote the wrong book for the wrong audience. So really great
there's a new book on the way?
There will be a second book at some point, and it's perfectly tailored for my audience now. But it probably isn't for a couple of years. I've got too many exciting product things I need to focus on first.
Perfect. Well, the focusing is a problem I have, certainly. But yeah, I look forward to the next book and make it count. And are you happy for people to connect with you on LinkedIn, whoever listens to this and beyond?
Best place to go. If you want to just follow my LinkedIn experiments, if not for anything else, then yeah, LinkedIn is a great place to start for sure.
Fantastic. And I'll also link to Mic Drop if people want to connect there. If that's okay with you.
I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your aha moments with me. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and we will definitely have a cup of tea at some point in the hopefully near future, because we know so many people, Ben Keane, Mark LaRousse, Sophie Storm-Roberts, Hannah Wittett. We definitely need to get together.
We could get a solid room together between us. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. I look forward to it. Cheers.
Thanks, Kobi.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of our Aha Moments podcast with Alex Merry. And Alex, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great to speak to you finally, after so many people have been on here. Sophie, Mark LaRousse, lots of people who know your vibe. We talked about Chris Donnelly in this episode. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully some people listening to this, guys, go to the Mic Drop. All of the details to get in contact with Alex are in the show notes, are in the comments and the description below in this YouTube video. Hopefully, tell him I sent you. Tell him I said hello. Now, if you do want to say hello to Alex, like I say, details in the show notes, but also check out his LinkedIn. If one thing resonated with you with this episode, please share it with other people. Just one person, a friend, a colleague, relative, who you think will benefit from this episode. And also, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Well, just on LinkedIn, because that's where I spend most of my time. So yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, head down, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Please leave a comment. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform like that, then please leave a review, please leave a rating, and I'll see you in the next episode.